is Gina from HauntedFlower.com and HauntedFlowerReviews.com, reporting from fabulously humid Indianapolis, where you will get the wind machine version of Gina today. We have a giveaway going on my site this week. Go to www.hauntedflowerreviews.com and we are giving away Blu-ray DVD combos of the movie Bull Durham. It's really easy. There's a trivia question, so just send the answer to hauntedflower@me.com and you'll get entered to win in the contest. I really apologize for the length of this video in advance, but the story of this red carpet premiere has to be explained along with the review for the movie because it was an entire experience. Rob Reiner's new film, Flipped, received the Heartland Truly Moving Picture Award, encouraging movies to be more moving. This was one of the worst ones they've given that award to yet. The red carpet premiere was held at the Hilbert Circle Theatre in downtown Indianapolis, featuring Rob Reiner, Madeline Carroll, John Mahoney, Anthony Edwards, and Penelope Anne Miller, available for opening remarks, a screening of the film, followed by a Q&A afterwards. So let me paint a picture for you. Hoosiers everywhere were excited at the concept of glimpsing a famous person, so they came out in droves dressed in their finest, or whatever passes for it. In two big crowds on either side of a sanctioned-off, very short red carpet, they all eagerly awaited for a limo to pull up. They waited for an entire hour, since they didn't realize that celebrities are always late, even to their own events. Meanwhile, as a press person, I went in looking where to get my passes, thinking, I'll just ask someone who works here. And the helpful usher scanning the tickets sent me to a hallway where there was will call hidden off of the main entrance. When I went there, they said, oh no, you have to go back around the corner and go to the left and ask that person. So I went back that way and asked that person. They looked at me like I had grown a second head, and they had no idea where the press went, but they were going to leave their station to go ask someone else who might know. And when they came back, they said, oh, I sent somebody else to go find the answer, so if you just stand aside over here, I'll get you that answer, which means I've been brushed off. I went and finally found a couple of film critic colleagues who pointed me to a card table set up to the left of the entrance outside in the heat, which I could not see beyond the giant crowds waiting. The folding table had a press check-in sign about this big, handwritten. We got our tickets, entered the theater, and gotten our seats, which were really short. They end about here, so you can't really lean back in them. And the rows are so narrow that anytime anyone wants to enter or exit the row, everyone has to stand up. We watched as 7 o'clock, the start of the screening, came and went with a mostly empty theater. Everyone's still waiting outside for the guests of honor to arrive. The opening remarks finally got started about 20 minutes later. I got out my camera as press to take pictures for my sites, and wouldn't you know it, but this elderly usher ran up and informed me that I was not allowed to take pictures and I had to put my camera away. I looked at him and said, I'm a member of the press. And he said, I don't care who you are, I'm going to take your camera if you take pictures. And meanwhile, as I look around me, there are at least 50 flash bulbs going off of regular people, and press people with giant fancy cameras. And they're running around trying to tell everyone one at a time not to take pictures at a press event. I received emails specifically asking me about how many photographers I would need for this event. I really just could not believe how rude the staff of the Hilbert Circle Theatre was for this event, where there was going to be so much press and so much attention because celebrities were going to be in town. Expecting to see trailers as one normally would before a film, instead we were barraged by a poorly edited pledge drive begging for donations for the Heartland Film Festival because they're so poor and cannot afford to put on their festival each year, and so they want us to raise $12 million for them. The commercial they edited together had lots of Rob Reiner films suddenly thrown in. The actual movie review. Flipped is based on a book written by Wendelin van Draanen that Rob Reiner's son was assigned to read in the 5th grade, and they both read it together and agreed it would make a great film. The story is about a young boy and girl falling in love gradually over time as it flips between their different points of view. Madeline Carroll plays Julie Baker, a girl who crushes immediately upon the character Bryce Losky, played by Kaylin McAuliffe. His family moves into the neighborhood and he is freaked out by her stalking and weird behavior in general. She thinks he's just shy and she can bring him out of his shell, and eventually she grows disappointed when he's not living up to her expectations, just as he actually is beginning to notice her more. The seesaw love story continues ad nauseum. Madeline's portrayal of Julie is spot on. Julie is smart, passionate, an activist, and most importantly, she is always true to herself. In short, she's too good for Bryce, who just goes along with the crowd, is a coward, and is easily confused by his feelings. Kalen may look the part of that good-looking, popular boy, but he never really owns it or transitions since he only has two emotions, happy or confused sad. The style of the film follows the style of the book, where you will see a scene, and then you will see the scene a second time, hearing the other person's inner thoughts. It's kind of a lot of voiceover, Dear Diary type of delivery, and most of the time it sounds like they're reading words off of a page. It's supposed to be so we can hear each of their different thoughts and interpretations, but since the scene is played exactly the same and there's no change in perspective or interpretation, it doesn't work. I mean, if they actually had done something different the second time, like Julie saw Bryce do something a slightly different way in her own mind, that's how she interpreted it, that would have been a successful 2 points of view. Instead, we're doing the exact same scene, the exact same acting, and I am tired of seeing the same scene twice. By spending so much time on this style, the rest of the characters suffered greatly in character development. We never got a lot of background or history specifically on anyone. Bryce's dad is played by Anthony Edwards, and he's supposed to be this successful, polished guy on the outside with something kind of rotting beneath, but all the audience ever saw were his flaws and that he was a jerk, and there was never anything good about him that anyone else could see. Mahoney played Chet, Bryce's grandfather, and he was very sweet and paternal in his own right, but I wish we could have learned more about the grandfather's background and why he thought that Julie, across the street, had so much in common with his late wife. Aidan Quinn plays Julie's father, a dreamer who loves to paint landscapes and sacrifices everything in order to take care of his family. He is by far the best example of a complex, rounded character demonstrated in the entire film besides Julie. There are no direct influences on the story that indicated the need of the setting for the late 50s, early 60s time period, and that actually ended up being a factor that Rob Reiner changed about the book. The book took place in present day. Reiner took it back to the time period of Stand By Me because it was very nostalgic for his own childhood and how he felt growing up, and he thought that emotions were purer in a time when kids were not distracted by texting and Facebook. I have to say, I'm going to disagree with him on this one. The qualities that make the character Julie so unique and attractive would be having a love for nature, climbing trees, raising chicken, being an entrepreneur, selling her eggs to neighbors. And if you had moved all that to the present day where the story took place, wouldn't that make her even more interesting and unique that she would be doing these things and stand out more for Bryce? I do enjoy watching the time period, and I really like the soundtrack for this film, but I'm really left curious wondering what it would have been like if it had taken place in the now. After the movie, the Q&A was the typical love fest of who was perfect for what part, and how if Rob Reiner asked someone to be in the movie, they didn't need to read the script, and Indiana residents competed with each other over who could hold their pinky in the air higher. A few minutes before the end, we ducked out. We tried to make up for the experience by scarfing a few brownies at the dessert reception and booked it. The amusement of others preening for attention and seeing how far they could stick their heads up Rob Reiner's butt was really not worth all the disorganized hassle of the evening. At least the desserts were tasty as I fled the scene. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Shameless plug! Don't forget to see all of my reviews and videos of me on the Rotten Tomatoes show at hauntedflowerreviews.com. Also check out our store, hauntedflower.com, the web's best source for fantastic apparel. You can follow us on Twitter at haunted_flower or fan our Facebook page too. If you're local to the Indianapolis area, visit indiemojo.com for details on how you can win free screening passes.